guys, thanks for watching. You're with Cypher, and today we're going to be looking at major scales. So if you remember in the film The Sound of Music, there's the do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, and I'm not going to say that again. That's what we're talking about, is that scale. And we're going to be looking at a number of scales. I'm going to start off with the key of C, because the key of C is the only one with no flats or sharp notes, so it's nice and easy. And one of the things that we want to remember is that a major scale is known as a diatonic. So it is made up of 7 notes or pitches from the root note. So in the key of C, we're looking at C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. And we've brought forward our template that we've been using, because this works again for the scales. It pretty much works everywhere. And all major scales follow this same template. So what we'll do is we will create a grid, and into that grid we will drop the key of C. So we're working in the key of C. That's what this initial orangey color note is for. And then we have C in position 1, D in position 2, E in position 3, position 4 is F, 5 is G, 6 is A, 7 is B, and then back to 1 for C. Now, some of you, when you're learning, will be taught that we number this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this second C becomes an 8. I've opted to call it 1 because 8 was getting me a little bit confused. If you look at a piano keyboard which runs, or the fretboard which runs, then you can start calling these notes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I was finding, and I might be wrong, but I was finding that I was going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. What's the next one? Is it 2? Because how does a 2 start? And then does it go from 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8? And I was getting really confused. And I understand why they go 1 to 8. But I was finding that 1 to 7 and then a 1 was working for me. So anyway, we digress slightly. The next thing we need to do after we've dropped our notes on is to put our half steps in. Now the half steps are always between notes 3 and 4 and 7 and 1, or 7 and 8 if you're using that counting method. So they are always in the same place. They don't change. And this maps perfectly to our template or our key over here. So we have full step, half step between 3 and 4, full step, half step between 7 and 1, or 7 and 8. So now we can use this key and the notes in the grid to work out where our sharps and flats go, or whether our key scale is fine. So in this instance, from C to D is a full step, and we're looking for a full step between these two notes. Likewise with D and E. E and F is a half step, and if we look at our key, we have a half step because there's no sharp or flat between E and F. F and G is the same, that's a full step. G and A, we're still good with a full step. A and B, again, is a full step. And then we're back to B and C, which is a half step, which means we are good. So the whole key of C works. No sharps, no flats. So let's start looking at something a little bit more difficult. And these are going to get progressively more difficult, which is why they're in this weird order. So the key of G is made up of G, A, B, C, D, E, F, back to G. Again, we drop in to our grid, our half steps. Most important, golden rule. Put your notes in, put the half steps in, and they always go in the same place between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1. It's always the same. Okay, so now we'll do the same thing. We'll start off with G, and G to A, we're looking for a full step, which is good. A to B, a full step, which again is good. B to C, we're good because this is a half step. Okay, this is looking fine. C to D, a full step. D to E, a full step. And then we need a full step now from E to F, but our key is only giving us a half step. So we have a problem, and we need to fix that problem. So what we can do, if we look at the key, is we go from E to F, which is a half step, and then F to F sharp, which is another half step. 2 half steps make a whole step. We're looking for a whole step, so we are good. Now, when I started with these letters and these symbols to make these graphics for me, because I just like the way that this works, it's helping me to learn, I didn't leave enough room for a sharp and a flat symbol. So the sharps in this grid will always be in blue. So just bear that in mind. So we're going from E to F sharp, so that's now fine. And then we need to go from F sharp to G, which again is a half step, and we're now looking for a half step, so we're good. So the key of G is G, A, B, C, D, E, F sharp, back to G. Now I don't have my guitar yet, annoyingly, so I can't play this, but I have listened to this scale online, and if you were to play a natural F, it sounds weird, and if you change that to an F sharp, then it sounds right. The pitch progression sounds correct, and this is what we're correcting in here with the sharps and the flats. So let's have a look at the key of D. So D, E, F, G, A, B, C, back to D. Again, what do we do first of all? If you said we drop the half steps in, you're right. Remember, the half steps go in same place, and then we can start at the beginning again. We always go left to right. So D to E is good. E to F is not good because we're looking for a whole step and we've got a half step. But again, we can bump the F to an F sharp to give us our half step to make our whole step. And then we fix the F to G, or sorry, the F sharp to G. From there, F sharp to G is a half step. We're looking for a half step. G to A is a full step. A to B is a full step. Then B to C goes wrong because again, B to C is a half step. So we need to do B to C half step, C to C sharp, and then that gives us another half step, which is our full step. And then that corrects that one. So then C sharp to D, that's fine because that's our half step that we're looking for. So D has 2 sharps, F sharp and C sharp. So let's have a look at the key of A. Nice and easy this one. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, back to A. Drop in our half steps and then we'll start from A and we'll go left to right. So A to B is a full step. B to C is wrong because we want a full step, but B to C is only a half step. So following on from what we did before, if we bump the C to a C sharp, then that fixes the B to the C sharp. And it also fixes our C sharp to the D, so we're good there as well. Then we're back to a full step for D to E, and then E to F again is wrong, and you're seeing the pattern now because now we've got a half step and we want to have a full step here, so we bump the F to an F sharp, and then that gives us our correction. And then F to G, again that one is wrong because F sharp to G is only a half step, so we need to bump the G over to G sharp. So we're going from F sharp to G sharp, so in other words one full step, and then that one's corrected, and then we are back to G sharp to A, which is our half step. So the key of A is quite a complicated one. We've got A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, G sharp, back to A. Okay, the last one I want to look at in this video is the key of F, because this one is different to all of the others and we throw yet another anomaly in. Now we do exactly the same as we've done before. So our root note is F, G, A, B, C, D, E, back to F, and we put our half steps in as we have done all the way along. We then start with the F, and the F to G is a full step, so we're good. G to A is a full step, so we're good. However, A to B is a full step, but we're now looking for a half step. So what do we think we need to do now? Well, if you said let's bump the B to B sharp, you'd be wrong because that will not work. Because if we look at our key and we're going from A to B, so if you were to say B sharp, you go A to B Well, we don't actually have a B sharp anyway, so that's our first problem. But that would actually give us 1.5 steps, and we're actually only looking for a half step. So if we're only looking for a half step, it's easy. We just go from A to A sharp, or B going back to B flat. Now, within the guitar, we could quite easily go to A sharp, and that's absolutely fine. However, if you were to talk to a clarinet player or somebody in the orchestra and ask them to play an A sharp, they're going to look at you very, very strangely, because they don't recognize A sharps, they only recognize B flats. So what we're going to do to keep this correct, and this is something I'll need to remember, is instead of taking the A forwards, we're going to bring the B backwards. So we go from A to B flat, and then that corrects our half step. And we've introduced a flat, which is this brownie coloured note, and then we are good. So we are at the B flat, and we want to go to a C, which is fine, and then C to D, D to E, and then E to F, which again is a half step, and we're absolutely fine. So you can see here as we go through these keys how easy it is using this key and this grid to work out what our scales should be. Remember always to number your notes and to have the half steps between 3 and 4 and 7 and 1 or 7 and 8. And then you just need to be aware of whether you are bumping notes forwards, which is the norm or seems to be the norm within the guitar world, or whether you need to bump a note backwards as with the key of F to a B flat. Anyway, that's this video, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to like if you find this useful. And please bear in mind that I'm not a professional music teacher. I am a beginner, and this video is primarily for my review when I come back from time to time to play these scales, and I can very quickly remember how I worked out what was what. I found it useful. Hopefully you will. Anyway, I'll catch you next time. Thanks for watching. Bye.